Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to be playing Dimir Eye Reanimator or Abhorrent Oculus. This is a very cool, unique card, and the fact that it has a casting restriction, we'll go ahead and pull it up here and read it for you. As an additional cost to cast a spell, exile 6 cards from your graveyard. As flying at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep. Manifest Dread. Manifest Dread is going to look at the top 2 cards of our library, put one of them in the graveyard, and make one of them into a 2/2 creature that we can then cast for its mana cost if it is a creature. So that's very cool. And the way we're bringing it back is with No One Left Behind. The blue-white decks are playing like Helping Hand and things like that. No One Left Behind is a 5 mana spell, allegedly, but this spell costs 3 less to cast if it targets a creature with mana value 3 or less. Return target creature card from the graveyard to the battlefield. So we can technically return like a Sheoldred, but most likely this is to target our Oculus. One small trick to note is founding the third path, the bottom mode of the card. Exile a target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard, copy it, you may cast that spell. It'll kind of imply that No One Left Behind is 5 mana. Whenever you click it, it'll ask you to choose your target first, and then we'll choose the Oculus, and then it'll actually be reduced down to 2. So that is kind of an important key distinction that does leave us. Outside of that, what ways do we have to get it in the graveyard, or what ways do we have to just fill our graveyard in order to just hard cast it for 3 mana, because it can happen pretty quickly with just a Founding, a Picklock Prankster, and a Chart a Course. Chart a Course is a bit more of just a discard outlet to the Oculus, but the other two kind of work in tandem to make sure that we're filling our graveyard enough to either find a reanimate spell or just have enough stuff in there that of non-importance for the Oculus just to exile whenever we cast it from hand. Outside of that, we're just doing a ton of ways to support this kind of archetype and what blue-black does best, and that is Duressing our opponent, cut downing our creatures, go for the thirding our creatures, their creatures obviously. Using a Long Goodbye, Negate, and a Phantom Interference is kind of some one-of bullets that we want to be using in some spots that we feel necessary to use. And then we are playing some solid cards in Preacher of the Schism and Sheoldred of the Apocalypse. Outside of that, we're just going to go ahead and dive into games. Okay, well, I think I can keep this. We have Hand Disruption. We have an Eyeball to potentially discard at some point. We can go for a Surveil. I like kind of doing that first. Just on the fact that cut down's not going to be super huge. I also think they just mulliganed. I don't know if they did it twice. I thought it moved twice. They might have mulliganed twice, which to some extent makes me want to duress them right away. No, they just mull once, so I'm still going to Surveil. If it was a mull twice, I'd probably do something about it, but right now I'm not going to. That extra land drop I'm not entirely sure is needed currently. It's kind of like, much rather find a way to get rid of this or something. Okay. They're these Rakdos Sacrifice deck, so most likely this card is going to hit no matter what. Press. Nowhere to Run, the Snake, and Braids. Okay, we get rid of the Nowhere to Run. I can cut down this just to ensure that nothing funky happens, especially with the Snake. We just make it very hard to kind of deal with. And honestly, we hope for a Hopeless Nightmare, because then we just put this in the bin and then we reanimate it, and then they have an awful time. That's what we're getting. No. Okay. No trigger there. Not a big enough graveyard. We play land and we pass. One of the other reasons to just go ahead and hit that. Before the end step, we're going to go for the throw at this. We find a Picklock Prankster. I guess I just pass. 4th land means they're still short by 1. So here, instead of the reanimate spell, I'm going to take this Go for the Throat. It's going to matter for us a ton more than like in the long run of making the creatures and whatnot. We're just going to cast Nigh here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I guess 6. We don't have Hottigen to worry about, which is actually what I was thinking about for a second. We go ahead and do the creature because in case we need to have flying for some reason, we can. Whatnot. Disturbing. Sure, they're going to sacrifice the other one. They'll make a thing. They'll draw 2. A manifest like we just did, which is cool. Yeah. Then Snake's still short. They need 2 more mana. Can obviously pop the eye, which sounds disgusting to say out loud. We're gonna make us discard. We'll just throw the other eye in the graveyard. And obviously, we have a reanimate spell, and just like that, we find a pretty good way to just bring it back. This is pretty much unbeatable now, for the most part. I don't really care if they trade their face down creature. I don't care if they trade it. I'm not trading it here. Should tell us a lot, but we'll pass. 2 more Oculus triggers. We're gonna have a lot to go off of. Guess just put a founding in there. The land can go in the graveyard. It doesn't really matter. And then cut down can go in. Another reanimate card hits the graveyard, which is tough. I believe that's 3. Yeah. So if our eyeballs do happen to go into the bin, they're kind of there permanently. So it is what it is. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay. That's fine for now. I'm perfectly okay with this. I still have one. I still can sacrifice these other things, get them in the graveyard if I want to. Whenever the snake enters, and I can still hit for 6. The 2 obviously makes it a bit less, but... Ooh, a level up here. Interesting. I guess to go for the throws, make like holding them hostage here. Turn his face up. I have nothing else. I've never had anything else. Combat. Permanents matter whenever it comes to this card, so if they want to trade off, they can do that. We'll gladly take it. Obviously, this could manifest into something. Nowhere to run. Okay. It was a bit risky to target a creature like this. It should be the flyer. It should be this Picklock Prankster, at least I would think. What's happening? Oh. Opponent. Okay. They go for the flyer. Totally makes sense. This trades off. This hits for 2, hit for 5, and we'll just go ahead. I guess I don't. Well, if I hit another eye, I'll be happy that I have the mana. Most likely, we're gonna have to hit this the Rotten Viper. Time, dude. Every time. I just brought up that if we hit the eye, we're gonna hope for the mana. But I'm still perfectly okay because we can always flip it on our turn. It doesn't really matter. And if they have removal, obviously it's going to get aimed at that. Or if they guess correctly. Sure. That's 4 permanents. The Viper can be played. Know exactly how this word. Oh, also, here's one of the really bad sides about Viper. If it dies before the trigger resolves, you don't have to sacrifice anything. It's kind of cringe, to be honest. That is the worst part about Viper. That honestly just sucks. It's crazy because you can play it so early. Like, the restriction makes sense. But whenever you play it like that, where you sacrifice like 4 permanents and like it enters, it triggers, and your opponent goes remove it, and it goes, oh, you have to sacrifice nothing, take no damage. Okay, cool. I'm glad I played this deck. It's just tough. It's just tough in general. But yeah, we take it. Very cool. All right. Interesting hand. A Sheoldred with 2 lands, you know. Always a ideal opener if you would. But we'll keep. We do have a cut down. We can use a Duress if we need it. Duress is obviously going to be needed. This could be combo, which is scarier, I think. I don't know. It's like weird. Like, combo's scary, but it's domain. Okay. Everybody's favorite. Get Lost is okay. Sunfall's really annoying. Herd Migration's pretty awful. I guess, like, the Get Lost is whatever, because we do have reanimate spells. Sunfall's, like, kind of annoying. Leyline's whatever. Oh, man. It's between Herd Migration and Leyline Binding. 3 life and a little bit more domain. I mean, I think it's supposed to be Leyline then. Our cut down's dead. Phantom Interference. The difference was if I took Herd Migration, they get to do nothing this turn. But I'm just going to go ahead and chart a course then. Yeah, sure. I do think being able to bring back a Sheoldred and force some stuff to happen might be good, but holy cow, my hand awful. Definitely not prepared for this matchup, and if it doesn't go any better, just like my opponent's career, we're going to 0-2 drop. Obviously, we're making a joke about their name, not the fact that they may or may not be the best at the game. And there's an eye. Honestly, with my hand being this bad in a beanstalk, I'm just moving on. There's just no reason to stick around, I think. Alright, no reanimate spell here, but a pretty good hand overall, I would have to say. So we'll definitely keep. Play a swamp to hold open our cut down, and then we'll obviously go for island, play the founding, use the chart of course, I think. Which does kind of flush out our hand quite a bit, which is obviously a little bit stressful, but then founding then activates, and then we mill ourselves, and then we just cast the eye for free. Then we can go in with second chart of course after worst case scenario, because that would be what? I don't know, actually. Analyze Pollen, is this Simic? It actually doesn't bode well for us, because bounce spells are so annoying to the Oculus here. The Abhorrent Oculus. It's just like an awkward card name to say over and over again, so I just call it the Eye. I feel like everybody knows what I'm talking about. Would you like to grab your basic island? Basic forest. Okay, never mind. My opponent's gaming. Well, just like that, I mean, we get to put this Oculus in the graveyard with our chart of course cast. Although a little part of me wants to put one of these lands in there, because that's a lot of mana. But you never know, we might find a Sheoldred. There's an eyeball in there, you're good. Depending what we draw here, if it's like a counter spell, I'm not going to bring the eye back. At least it doesn't feel like I should. Just because of the amount of interaction my opponent might have. Can't? Domain? This isn't turned on? We analyzed the Pollens, we doing? Kill ourself, I guess? It's definitely to bring the eye back, right? Here we go. Which one of these would I like to put underneath? Correct. Weirdly enough, I still think it's the Oculus. Temporary lockdown can't. Our current board. But if I could flip the Oculus on this next turn, it is Domain. Why is Domain everywhere? Oh, yeah, because I'm playing an oddball deck, so Domain's finally allowed to play the game, so they let him. I see how it is, dude. Oh, what a pickup for us. Very cool. We will... Dude, this doesn't work. So, man, I should have put the Sheoldred underneath and then did this, I guess. That's tough. That is tough. Will I cast this? I guess so. I think it's worth casting here. Let this cut down go. I'm perfectly fine with that. We'll play this land. Move to combat. We'll attack. The thing about one eye is, like, you don't need much from it. You just need enough to do what we're doing. We put founding underneath. The reason why is because we can play this founding on the final mode and then duress our opponent after we counter their sunfall here. I'm just predicting. I don't know if they're going to cast sunfall. They would never cast sunfall onto my board of creatures. Oh, it's a Zur. If I counter Zur, they can't do anything. But I can also long goodbye the Zur. But I can't long goodbye this. But this is also another eye, which has 10 damage. Can I get through enough? That's the hard part, right? Wait, no, they only have a cavern up, sure. Alright. Okay. I was like, wait, they only have a cavern available. They actually can't do anything with it. Huh. Okay. Sure. Sick. Only blue mana. This opener. With a duress. But we do go first, and we get Next draw, 2 draws. We get 4 draws. Sure. To find the swamp that's relevant. If not, then I don't know. We lose the game probably. Also mulligan. This is good news. Surveil land would be fine here because we could play it and then Duress them. The team, who's going to let me keep cheating for this long? Thoughts? We'll take that land just because we do have 2 Sheoldreds currently in our hand. And we look at them and they are 100% the combo deck. I don't know if we can see how they're the combo deck, but they are. Which I would argue is actually worse for us to end up playing against. It's a bit harder. I guess I'll just go for the Charter Course for now. Another reanimate spell. We'll just put the Eye in the graveyard. And then we can double cast to rip it out if we want. We can go for Sheoldred, which they're obviously kind of forced to counter. Then we can bring back the Eye, but I think guaranteeing the Eye to come back this turn is better than getting a Sheoldred counter. Because they're obviously going to Confounding Riddle this, right? No? They're just going to bounce it back to my hand? I thought for sure that they would try to counter it. I understand they can do this, but I was just like, oh, they won't let this resolve. They're just going to hope I don't have another one, maybe. And use this if I attack with something. But I guess that makes way more sense, though. The more I think about it, that's just, like, clearly the better play to have made. But, well, there's an Omniscience in there, and I don't have another way to stop them from doing it. So here's this. I hope they just don't have another one of these in their top 15, 14 currently. Obviously, they get a lot of looks, though. Like, even if they don't have it now, they're going to have a ton of looks. Obviously, I could have held up Cut Down, but they have 2 Confounding Riddles. So it's not like I get to do anything with those. And the odd part is I have to attack regardless. Not like I don't have the choice here. Now, we get to do something pretty sweet. So obviously we'll attack here. It's going to be one of the cool plays that I get to do. I had that just happened. What do you think about block? It's definitely block here. Don't take 6. We get to play a Founding the Third Path. I just realized that I might be in the wrong game. Okay. I was like, sometimes I play so many games of Magic on a day that I forget what game I'm currently in. And that, like, have I cast a Duress yet? But we get to go to the third mode, Duress, take this Confounding Riddle. Sweet. So now even if they bring back Omniscience, it'll be 2. And I can cut down it. Which seems pretty good. They leave on top. Now it'll be 3, though. Ugh. But if they don't have anything to do, though, then what ends up mattering anyway, right? Well, I guess it doesn't. 4? You have the bounce spell? You ripped a bounce spell? What a monster. Same rule applies, though. We play a Sheoldred, and then we cut down the creature. If we're allowed to, which we're not. But if it's exactly land, bring back Omniscience, at least we get a turn to solve it. Alright, turn. We just, I don't know, attack with the Sheoldred. It's back. It's a 4/4. You are correct. Did indeed put a 4/4 in play. I would like to move to combat. I would like for you to draw land off the top of your library, please. Oh, no. They attack. That kind of tells us that's what they drew. Combat. Down to 4. Play one of these. Down to 2. Good cards, deck cards, bad cards. Ugh, that's not good. Good cards, bad cards, deck cards. Smile. Listen, I understand what is on the line there when they draw, but they can cast so many cards at instant speed it doesn't really matter. And I also forgot I had a Sheoldred in play that does make them take damage if they draw cards. That's not on me, dog. I don't know. It's been a long day. Our opponent goes first. All we have is Chart of Courses and the eyeball, but I guess we can just keep that. All right. We draw a land, which isn't necessarily the worst. We do play Sheoldreds in the deck. Looks like mono black is the option here. Go for Chart of Course. Obviously, nothing really to stop us here. Discard a eyeball. Maybe we could have just gone for Picklock and maybe just fueled the graveyard in general just to hard cast one of these. But when you're staring like right down the barrel of removal, it's a little bit tougher, I think. Go ahead and play this because it won't matter too much. Let's play a Founding and then do the Picklock Prankster. At some point, we'll probably find our good old Reanimate spell. But at this point, we're just fueling the other kind of like Oculus to just hard cast it. Now, Anoint is a card that we have to be scared of. Anoint with Affliction because it can exile. Not having like any type of counter spell is going to be tough. This will give us more information if they're just mono black. There's a cut down. This is the weird part where I mill them. We're going to mill them. Watch this. It's going to be 4 lands. They're going to be tilted. Oh, it was too. Oh, it's one of the weird like meta calls you sometimes have to do. I just let them like whittle their like removal around. Like I'll just cast a Chart of Course and then I'll just play this Picklock Prankster. It might be a bit too slow, but now that I have a Duress, I feel a little bit better about bringing out the Oculus next turn. I'm just gonna play this Prankster and call it a day. Most likely it'll get hit with a removal spell, as we saw. Anoint with Afflictions also here, but there's also probably an Unholy Annex I'll have to answer in their hand, but we give them a little bit of value from their hand when they're missing land drops. There's a Deep Cavern Bat, which can take my Oculus, which is a little tough, but it does exile everything. Don't really have a removal spell for the Deep Cavern Bat. Best take has been taken. Do we want to cast his Chart of Course? I mean, I guess so. Like, what's the harm in casting this one, I think? I don't think it's much. Find a Duress and a Go for the Throat. Right now, I think backup Chart of Course is not the best. Anoint or Founding is always good because we can always recast our Reanimate spells. Let's go for a Duress here before we make too many hasty options. Nowhere to runs don't matter. Sheoldred's Edict does, however. And then I can go with a Go for the Throat on the end step. Keep it protected. At least the eye protected. They hit land. Go for Unstoppable Slasher. Now that's obviously kind of a problem. Especially considering they have lethal. But I guess I can always block with my Manifested card. If like that's what it comes down to. Or I can use Cut Down. Play the Oculus. Let's exile Chart of Course, Founding. Any land in here is just free, and any kind of permanent that's not just a creature. Then if I'm holding up Cut Down, I guess I want to hold Duress for like a following turn, because I feel like if they hit land, they're going to play the Bloodletter and threaten lethal. We want to put Negate underneath because we want that in our graveyard. So when we Founding, we can cast it from our graveyard. Put down. Yeah, we can cast this from our graveyard by using Founding. Then did I just highlight the eyeball? We can cast this from our graveyard using our Founding and target eyeball. We lose a 2-2. A little tough. Finding another land's actually important here too. This last card is maybe a dud card. We're not really sure what it is. Another Slasher. We take the Nowhere to Run, which is fine. We cast Founding. Put it on mode 3. We click this. I don't know how this works. We're learning. Oh, okay. So it still just is that mana cost, which is perfect. We'll just play this last card. Now, obviously, if they find like a hand disruption card, then so be it. Cut down can stay in the graveyard. Picklock can come in because that can give us a flyer if need be. But even if they're like land, play, bloodletter, it just doesn't end up mattering. Combat. Just attack here. The lethal clock doesn't change very much with currently what's on board, so now we'll pass. Now these happen first, so if we actually hit a Sheoldred, we want to flip it before they draw. It ends up not happening. But because Oculus happened at the beginning of their upkeep, we can always get a Sheoldred, and on that draw, we can just take whatever we want away. Here. I guess I should be looking to see what card matters, and then, of course, our opponent's just sticking around to end the game, so we'll just attack for them, get them out of here. They're blocked down there. I should have flipped it. They guessed right. That's really funny. I should have flipped it into a Picklock Prankster, but they were saying to let us finish the game out, so I'm just going to let the game go. Well, team. This seems like a keep. Obviously, we need to hit an eyeball, but if we also hit a land, we're pretty pumped. We'll throw the Charter Course away. Although, Charter Course would have been fine because I could get rid of a Preacher and bring it back, but that's not what we're here for, right? We ain't messing around with that, dude. The Orzhov, maybe just hard Orzhov, maybe... Oh, it's Orzhov control. Okay. Well, we're going to draw a land. This is going to be 5th land in a... Actually, that's 6th land in a row. 7th land in a row. Arena, your shuffler's fine. We drew land 4. Oh, I guess it's 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Because we drew this card 4, 5, then 6. Yep, our shuffler's fine. Don't worry about it. There's nothing wrong with this shuffler, dude. Definitely just doesn't take lands and randomly decides to clunk them all together at some random point in the game and just decides you to figure out by yourself. But I would never make that statement. During Innocence, okay. Gonna be a very hard match. 7 in a row. It is actually 7 in a row. Let's make it 8. Why have anything else? Yeah! Shuffler's fine, baby. Exactly what we want. I'm not gonna lie to you. This game's already over. But we can keep playing. By it's already over, I feel like it's over for us. We have Duresses and stuff, and we're just not gonna be able to interact with them in time, I don't think. We're already almost ready to cast this, you know, for its full cost. At least we have 2 Preachers, and we might be able to get more draws, but they did pop the Carrot Cake, so they have a higher life, so the only thing we're going to do is make 1/1s, which is tough. Brother, Arena, are we actually serious? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lands in a row. I wish I was making it up. And the worst part is, these won't even draw cards. There's gonna make lifelinkers. I should have attacked with it, I guess, but we're getting Sunfalled, by the way, if you're curious what's happening to us next turn. And then, I mean, to be honest, I'm just not gonna stick around, I think. I'm just waiting for them to cast the spell. Okay. We're gonna draw 3 cards here. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think this game's just over. I don't care to stick around. Alright, well, I just previously kept a 2-lander, and it went into the, I don't know, 9 land straight. So, we're gonna see if that happens again. But, definitely keeping this hand. Hopeless Nightmare me, dude. Are you taking my Duress, or are you taking my Reanimate spell? I would argue that it's the Reanimate spell, but Duress also makes sense. Oh, unlucky for us. They took the Reanimate spell. We just drew another one, which would have been very cool. But then we would have got to Duress them, so. They're unfortunate for sure. Second land down. Nothing played for them. Third land, Unholy Annex. Deep Cavern Bat, okay. We're going to go with the cheap option here. Could obviously use the Go for the Throat, but obviously in mono black they play way better creatures that cut down's not going to be able to answer. We'll have to use the Go for the Throat to kind of clean up. You missed a land drop. Okay. Incredibly flooding into probably not going to see a land for the rest of the game. Name a better dynamic duo for our Magic the Gathering arena client. Sure. Give me stuff to do with my mana, which is cool. I also, honestly, yeah, it's actually a mistake that I even did that. Dude, this client's not real, dude. There's no way this is happening. We're now officially 14 cards deep. Haven't seen a third land. The last game, all we saw was lands, and here we are. It only does mana value 1 or 2. I mean, we're supposed to cast this, right? They're obviously going to remove it before we ever get back to their turn, but their hand has to be something, and they haven't done anything, so. Man, a lot of Sheoldred's edicts lately. That card grown in popularity since, I don't know, yesterday? I feel like I haven't seen Sheoldred's edict that often at all, and then all of a sudden it's just everywhere. Okay, I just wanted to know if I drew more cut downs than lands. I don't want to harp on it, but it's just an annoying thing that's happening. This one they knew about because of Deep Cavern Bat. Yeah, okay. I was curious if they knew about that card, but they definitely did. Another edict. Fine. Typically the problem is, sure, take your pick, dude. Have a look. Have a whole pack of them. Typically the person who's missed those land drops and starts hitting the lands first is typically going to come away with the win, which is why we're like perfectly okay. Like, this is a bit more reasonable for us to be fine with than like the last game, because when you draw a land you literally can't do anything, but the opposite becomes kind of true if you're like, if I could just hit a land, my whole hand becomes unlocked and I'm able to actually play my hand out. Do we go for Picklock Prankster here? Honestly, what's going to happen? I mill over 4 non-land cards? Have a cut down. Okay. Who knows? Maybe maybe they're thinking I'm going for that bottom mode Duress, and I'm not going to. Still in mode 1. Here goes a land and 3 other non-land cards. We'll put the counter spell in our hand. Even though at 7 mana it doesn't really do anything, but I feel like the other copy of cut down's not going to do anything. They're going to have non-land cards on top. Oh no, I messed up. Combat. Deck. 2. They can decide if they want to remove this or not. I shouldn't have played the land. Playing the land with the Sheoldred in hand actually gave them too much information, I think. That's a mistake by me. It's like the subtle things that you have to kind of think about when the game's coming out, but yeah, our opponent's having the opposite problem, where they're just getting a little too many lands and stuff. But I'm going to make it a little bit more awkward on our opponent, and I'm going to play 2 more Picklock Pranksters out. And I'm just going to go wide instead of putting my Sheoldred out there for them to find super good removal for. Another cut down. Oh. Take your pick. What would you prefer? I'm just going to bring back the eyeball. I'm not even going to worry about the resting. I don't know if it's necessarily worth it. And combat, attack. Creature. Another dude, because I can't gain enough life. Now I will draw off my creatures. Put a land under there. Well, like I said, we're in this situation where if we draw land in time, we're perfectly fine and good. Because they haven't put any pressure on. And having too many lands, I think this is the best example of what I was talking about last game. Why we were just dead in the water. Because with drawing too many lands, eventually you just have literally nothing to do. They could not do anything. And we were stuck with a ton of cards in our hand. We just need a land to play something. And as soon as we hit that land after being able to cast our 2 mana spells a couple of times, then we finally played a Preacher. They just were not able to answer it because all they drew was lands. And this Preacher alone just generated creatures, hit them, gave us value. And then They just drew a bad card and then drew a land and then drew a bad card and then drew a land. And it's I think flooding is almost more tilting than missing a land. And maybe that's because if you miss a land, you're not around as long. But flooding, you just feel like, if I just hit a good card, I'm good. But then you never hit the good card, you just keep hitting lands, and it just feels awful. Okay, so here we are. Outro take number 2. As you can see, the deck's kind of all over the place, but it's one of the first things I think it's important to cover, and that's the budget of the deck. I do like to kind of cover the budget of the deck in the outro, but this deck is actually weirdly budget friendly, especially if you're already a blue-black player, because one of the things I kind of cover a lot is if you know the color combination you like to play the most, even if it's Izzet and Izzet's not necessarily that strong right now, I always kind of recommend crafting the lands first, because having nice solid lands can actually make up for playing like a suboptimal card in your deck. If you don't, for example, if we don't have 4 Oculuses and you're like, I do have a Haughty Djinn I can play, but I can only play 3 Oculuses, and then okay, then play the Haughty Djinn. That's perfectly fine. Like, sometimes when you have it, if it's an eyeball, you might be like, okay, if we had the eye, we actually probably win that matchup. You can kind of evaluate it and be like, it is worth crafting the last one. But you can always kind of substitute cards in the deck overall. Like, it doesn't really matter too much. But if you have been playing black for a while, most likely you already have the Sheoldreds. If you've at least been playing standard for a little while, and Preacher may or may not be a card you have. Obviously, 3 rares isn't too much to scoff at whenever you're talking about overall budget that some decks are requiring. But here, commons, uncommons, rares, and 6 mythics. It's in terms of like your main board kind of stuff outside your lands, and then it's 16 rares in your land slots. So overall, I would argue that that's pretty budget friendly. I understand that especially when I started playing, like getting the lands was so frustrating because you're not like crafting the cool card, right? You're crafting like the random thing that's a requirement to play the game, and that's lands. But with that said, pretty budget friendly overall with the deck. And what I wanted to kind of talk about after is I found this deck to be a lot more enjoyable when we actually got to play the games. Obviously, there was a couple where it was like I just hit every land in the book, or I just had like a big removal heavy hand and happened to go against the one matchup. It's not the one matchup, control's kind of the same, but I just happened to go against a matchup where like our removal didn't matter that much. So I was stuck with like 2 cut downs and the go for a throat or 2 in hand against Domain, which did not care at all. So it was kind of just like bad matchups for that. So we just kind of conceded and moved on. Or there was the game where we hit 9 lands in a row. Or there was the game immediately after where our opponent hit probably 9 lands in a row. It's just like, I rather not played either of those games, it felt like, and just like called it a wash and left my rank at the same and just kept moving on, That's always obviously the frustrating part is like, I'm okay with losing when I lose the game. I don't like losing when I have no control over it. But that's it. I can also like move this stuff back around. I know it might be a little bit more confusing to look at that way, even though I guess all the 2 mana spells just kind of flop on top of each other. Just literally basically the same exact deck construction. It's kind of funny. I was like, oh yeah, let me fix all this. I was like, wait, never mind. Most of our spells just are 2 mana. This is obviously in between. It's 2 mana, even if you target with like the Founding as you saw in the video. But yeah, this deck was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. It was kind of one of those decks I looked at on paper and I was like, oh, this looks neat. It looks cool. Is it actually that great? I have no idea. And I played it. I did make one major change though. The deck was playing like 3 negates. I decided to cut 2 of them because I think negate's a hard card in best of 1. And I ran a Long Goodbye and a Phantom Interference over that. So if you want to play kind of what the true list have been running recently, that is 3 negates and these are out. But in best of 1, I like to have the option of just being able to remove a Sheltered by Ghost creature or like a thing with hexproof and things like that. Just because, again, are not hexproof, ward. Things that have ward, this can still remove because of the fact that it cannot be countered, so you just don't have to pay that ward ability. This includes by the ward ability. So it literally says on the card. I forgot that they made changes because people were Long Goodbying at first and then paying the ward cost. And we're like, we missed the whole part of why this card was good. Nothing like having the Graveyard Trespasser and your opponent still discarded a card whenever they targeted it with a long goodbye. Nothing made me happier and felt a little bad, but Phantom Interference just is like a catch-all card. I know Negate can counter Sunfall, but so can Phantom Interference most of the time whenever it happens that way. But that said, deck was fun. I enjoyed it. It's a little bit more budget friendly than I thought it was, and that's all I got. So I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.